as we started intentionally deeply resting just over 3 years ago is we became more productive, more creative, more effective, more fruitful in all of our work in our home and out of our home through this design of rest, because God truly did design us to thrive through this beautiful harmony of work and rest together.
Well, hi, we're glad you're here, and welcome to Practice Makes Parent, where we understand it's not about perfection, but about transformation. I'm Dr. Danny Huerta.
And I'm Rebecca St. James. And so summertime is officially in full swing, Danny, and you and Heather are pretty much empty nesters now, and you're in the garden a lot. Have you had a chance to do some hiking or camping or explore the mountains?
As a family, we have loved the outdoors.
Yeah.
It's so resetting for us. We would do hiking, camping, since the kids were super little. I mean, I think our first camping trip was when they were 2 and 4 or 3 and 5. And it was tent camping.
So fun.
It was great. They still remember it. Actually, now my daughter is getting close to 20, and she said, "Dad, I still remember the smells of that first camping trip where we went to the Los Burro, and there was barbecue, cooking, and those smells stand out. And camping smells are fantastic.
Oh, like
smells in
nothing else.
nature.
Yes.
They bring back a lot of memories.
Yes.
And here in Colorado, we have so many trails to explore, so many more that Heather and I will explore
Now,
as empty
in this
nesters.
season?
Yes, new ones that we didn't.
This summer?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so as a family, we've done things outdoors in our backyard. We've played wiffle ball baseball in our bockyard, hitting over into the neighbors. We've
fun.
We've played football in the backyard, basketball, bocce ball, beanbag toss. I mean, you name it. And then we've worked in our yard, talking about the stewardship of the land you're on. And so we've weeded together, we've watered together, we've planted together, we've enjoyed the produce of our land together, and then we've taken lots of walks in our neighborhood. Those are so renewing. We would take the football with us or a ball. We enjoy being outside, and from an early age, our kids have enjoyed it too. And we've had moments with thunderstorms and
the adventure of the outdoors.
Yes, moments where you go, I don't know if we'll survive this one.
But you did.
Who knows? And we did. We lived to tell. What about you guys? What have you guys done outdoors? I'm sure in Nashville, it's beautiful there.
Yeah, we love to swim in the pool a lot. We have a little pond on our the back of our property. Got a couple acres. I actually like mowing, Danny. Do you know that about me?
That's great.
Like the ride-on mower. It's like really fun.
Is that therapeutic for you?
It is. Just the back and the forth, and I'm like accomplishing something, but it's like
it's
chill.
satisfying at the end.
It very much is.
You see it, and it's done.
Yeah, it's very A plus B equals C, and I think music world is not that so much. It's like creative, and it's like not super tangible sometimes, but that is just you do a good job, you keep your line straight, and it looks really nice, and in a couple hours it's like very changed.
So how do you figure out the pattern you're going to go?
Oh gosh. See, my husband's very much into that. So I generally go like around, like in a circle, because you don't want to go back and forth, because then you're going to get kind of some of the cuttings on where you've already mown. Okay. So there's a science to this, Danny.
I clearly. Yeah. I learned something about you here, Rebecca.
But you know what I want to do this summer? We have this little pond, and I want to camp right next to the pond with the kids.
Great idea.
Yeah, and just hear the sounds and the frogs and the birds and all of it, the outside.
Is there fish in the pond?
No, but there should be. I think we should put some fish in the pond.
Stock it up.
Yeah, have the kids go fishing.
That would be fun.
These are some good ideas.
Well, before we know it, it'll be school season again. So coming up on this episode, we're going to be talking about the nature of rest. And we'll talk about biblical principles of why we should rest, and how getting out into nature is one of the best ways we can reflect on our situations, connect with each other, and connect with God.
100%.
Yeah.
And also coming up in this episode, we have a question from a mom about allowing her daughter to drastically change her appearance. She's also asking for some healthy compromise in that situation. So that one should be kind of fun, but very interesting. Yes.
Let's jump into our discussion with Eryn Lynum. She's a master naturalist. Have you
I
heard
love
of a
that title.
certified-
Have
no?
never heard of that before.
You going for that one?
I think I will.
Rebecca, yeah. It sounds like a good one. As well as the host of the podcast for kids called Nat Theo, where she teaches nature lessons rooted in the Bible. I love that, rooted in the Bible, nature. Do you get that, Rebecca? I like that.
Nice.
She's also the author of the book, The Nature of Rest. And here's how that conversation started. Well, Eryn, it's good to have you with us. I had a mentor once tell me, learn to pump the brakes. Learn to do that in life. And we're going to talk about rest. Why is rest important in your mind?
Rest is one of the most powerful strategies that we can use in our parenting, in our homeschooling. And I know that's very different than what culture tells us, because culture often wants us to think that rest is lazy or idle, or we're not contributing, or we're going to miss out on opportunities.
But you're not doing anything.
Or you're not,
Right,
because we get this idea of rest is just stopping. And in some extreme cases, at times it needs to be. But what my family found as we started intentionally deeply resting just over 3 years ago is we became more productive,
Yeah. Oh, I can see that.
more creative, more effective, more fruitful in all of our work in our home and out of our home through this design of rest, because God truly did design us to thrive through this beautiful harmony of work and rest together.
Yes.
And what caused you guys to go to this place of rest in your home?
Necessity and desperation.
What happened?
We were at the end of ourselves, which is a good place to be, because then you get to see God work. And so my husband and I both run businesses, and we homeschool our 4 kids. But wherever anyone is, every season we're busy. If your schedule isn't busy, then your mind is, your body is, your heart is. So we were in this place where we were just depleted.
Yeah.
And we realized we could no longer forego rest. And it was a sweet thing, because the Lord really brought a mind shift for us and showed us that rest is not like this heavy command, like, okay, now you need to rest. It's an invitation. It's a celebration.
A privilege, really.
A privilege.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's this powerful thing that God gives us. Like when you think about it, so Sabbath comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat, which can mean to both stop and delight. Like what a beautiful picture
great.
that we regularly get to stop from our regular routine and delight in God's presence, in our family, and all those things we always want to get to. But, I don't have time right now. Well, our family is never more than 6 days away from a day set aside to stop and delight.
And here, Focus on the Family, of the 7 traits of effective parenting, and part of adaptability is this invitation to rest, to manage the stress that we've got, so that we can adjust to what's in front of us.
Yeah.
We need rest in order to see.
Yeah.
We need rest in order to be able to respond to life instead of being taken into life for a ride.
Yeah.
You get to respond to
Instead
that.
of react.
That reaction can take us into places that are very difficult, and when you're not resting, you become rigid, and when you're restful, you become adaptive, and that's that first trait. We'll leave a link for you to check out this assessment, the 7 traits of effective parenting assessment. Now, you tell us about Addison's disease. This is something that you have had to learn a lot about and now speak on. Tell us about what this means for you in your life and your family, and why it's so important within this context of rest.
Well, I often say that our family started our journey into rest about 3 years ago, when we started Sabbathing together and creating just these daily, weekly, and seasonal rhythms of rest. But really, when I look back, I can see that God was bringing me into this lifestyle years ago.
Yeah.
When I was 14 years old, I was preparing for my first overseas missions trip. And I had never before even stepped foot on an airplane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and now I was going to fly to Ethiopia, Africa. And I was staying in Malawi, Africa for 2 months. And before you do a trip like that, you need to go get a checkup from the doctor and travel vaccines. And I had no strange health history. We had no reason to believe that anything was off. So my parents took me in, and a nurse, when you walk into the doctor's office, the first thing they're going to do is check your vitals. And that's kind of your first red flag if something's wrong. And that, in my case, it was. When she checked my blood pressure, it was 56/48. which is extremely low.
Wow.
The doctor later told my parents that it was the lowest he had seen in a living person.
Wow.
I've never heard of one that low.
Yeah, it was very low. And immediately we know, okay, something is wrong.
And you weren't feeling terrible?
So in the months prior to that, I had lost a lot of weight and my parents had noticed I'd been kind of sluggish, a little dizzy at times. But, they chalked it up to adolescence and going through bodily changes. And so we really didn't think anything of it. But thankfully, before I went overseas, God really showed us that something was wrong, and that led to further testing and seeing specialists and a diagnosis of Addison's disease, which is also called adrenal insufficiency. That is where your adrenal glands do not function whatsoever. So my adrenal glands have zero function, and barring a miracle, until I have a new body, they will not function. And so your adrenal glands, of course, they produce adrenaline, but they also produce key hormones, including cortisol. And that's your stress hormone. So when you face any kind of stress, be it physical, mental, emotional, your adrenal glands produce more cortisol to cope with that. This is a design that God has given us to live in a world cursed by sin where we're going to encounter a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Only my body does not do that. And so I had to, at that very young age, learn how to rest. Learn how to identify stress, step back from stress. My parents were wonderful in just coaching me, bringing everything to the Lord in prayer, bringing every thought captive, renewing my mind, placing all my anxieties into his care. And it's been just this lifelong journey of, it's beautiful because it could be a terrible thing, but I see it as beautiful because it has forced me into this design of rest that God always meant us to flourish through.
Well, and out of your learning about it, you're now able to teach and help other people as well.
Yeah.
Like the comfort that God has given you, you're able to comfort other people with, because this is a really, really important topic, the nature of rest, what the Bible and creation teach us about Sabbath living. I love this title of your book, and it's so needed. I mean, I feel like it's a message for such a time as this. And so I just love that he's used your story. Can you share your story and your analogy about the hummingbird and what the hummingbird teaches us about rest?
Mm-hmm. The hummingbird is a beautiful example of rest. And you don't often think of that because when you picture a hummingbird, what do you see in your mind?
They look so busy and so frantic, really.
Yeah, frantic and busy.
Yeah.
A hummingbird will visit between 1,000 and 2,000 flowers every single day to get the nectar that it needs. And so their little wings are flapping about 70 times a second. Or 4,200 times a minute. Right. They are constantly on the go. And sometimes we can feel like that hummingbird as parents, like, oh, we got to go over here and tend to this and this and this. But to fuel that constant activity, their little hearts, their tiny little hearts have to beat about 1,200 times every minute. Yeah. So their heart rate is 1,400% higher than ours. But it's this beautiful picture because the hummingbird, what sustains it is a strategy called torpor. And you can think of torpor like a mini hibernation, where the little hummingbird is going to lower its temperature about 50 degrees. And it's going to go into this deep, restful sleep. So much so that it's unresponsive. People think that they're dead when they find hummingbirds in torpor. But it's this beautiful picture and this reminder that, the hummingbirds are busy. They're doing their fruitful work. God created us for fruitful work. Work came before the curse. But what sustains the hummingbird is this regular rhythm, this harmony of fruitful work and deep intentional rest.
How often does it do that?
I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah.
I know it's like a regular rhythm that it will
Yes.
go through. And a lot of times it'll do it in cases of like when the temperature is dropping and it needs to conserve energy.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful because like the bird is aware, oh, I need to conserve energy now. I'm going to go into this deep restful state for its survival.
Yeah. I love that so much.
Jesus gave us a model of what rest looks like. And this was in the midst of his ministry. Very intense demands on him, people pressing in, wanting to speak to him and or touch his garment. There are crowds constantly around him. What did that look like, and what does that teach us and teach our kids about what rest needs to look like in our day-to-day?
He gave us such an amazing example of rest during his time on earth, during his busy time in ministry. And we can see that poignantly in Mark 1. Mark chapter 1 is this whirlwind of activity where Jesus is starting his ministry. Really, he's starting the most successful and long-standing startup in history. He's calling his first disciples. He's starting a movement. He's beginning to preach and cast out demons and heal people. And right in the middle of it, he goes away to rest. He goes away to, it's called eremos is the Greek word, and it means a desolate place or a quiet place. Most often it's translated as a wilderness, which I think is really beautiful because we see Jesus retreating to the Grove of Olives, going out to the wilderness to commune with the Father. That is what upheld him, sustained him, because he entered into this physical reality that we face of true fatigue.
Yes.
And he knew the importance and modeled to us the importance of when we're in the midst of crazy, when we're in the chaos, that's exactly when you need to step away, get with the Father and rest.
Yeah. And some of my most beautiful times with God have been in nature. How can that slow us down? How can it help us make meaningful connections with God, with our kids? And if you can share just some examples of like ideas, practical ideas that the parents listening can involve themselves in with their kids, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I believe that God gave us nature as one of the greatest resources for our mental health, for our physical health, for our spiritual health. I work as a certified master naturalist.
Oh, that's so cool.
Which it's really fun work. And really that just means nature teacher.
Yes.
And so the reason I pursued this was I saw that in Scripture, God and Jesus taught using nature all the time. Like we were just talking about Jesus and his busy time in ministry, and he used things like a mustard seed and sand grains and sparrows and the wildflowers in the grass. So I thought, okay, if I can better understand these materials that God has given us in nature, I can better teach my own kids and others biblical truth. Because God created these two revelations, his special revelation of Scripture and his natural revelation of creation, to complement each other. So I was in this zone of, okay, our family is celebrating Sabbath. We're learning what it looks like to rest. And I'm researching nature and Scripture together. And I began to see that rest, the roots of rest, run deep in Scripture. And God designed all of nature to thrive through rest. And so as we take our kids outside, we can see these beautiful designs. Like I think about perennial flowers that come back year after year. And a couple of springs ago, my children and I planted perennial gardens in our yard. And it was so beautiful because when these plants arrived, we had done like a easy garden in a box kit. They looked like little clumps of weeds. They were just like a few leaves. I did not think these were going to turn into anything. But we put them in the ground, faithfully watered them. And before long, they were several feet tall and the next year bursting with blooms and blossoms. And it's this beautiful picture because perennial plants that come back year after year, what gives them that longevity are these seasons of rest where when they go dormant in the winter, their roots are resting. They're conserving energy. So our kids can see this year after year that the land rests and then it comes back and produces more. And so as we step back into those rhythms that God gives us in nature, I think about our circadian rhythm. Circadian means around a day, that God has given us these natural circadian rhythms that now with our access to technology and electrical lights, we've really stretched that meaning of circadian.
To our own cost, I'm sure.
Exactly. So as we step back into those, a great way to do it is to use the sunset and the sunrise as your cues to rest, becoming a collector of sunrises and sunsets. That as the sun is going down, take 5 minutes to step outside. That's your cue. I'm going to allow my body to realign with these rhythms that God has given me. I'm going to call my kids outside so they can do the same. And we are going to remember that God puts limits on a day, and he puts limits on our days for a good reason to help us thrive.
I know that when my kids were growing up, we, as we gardened together as a family, there were so many great analogies. Something that has been miraculously just amazing to me is the fragrance that comes from different flowers, the uniqueness of the different fragrances. And we'd go around smelling things and tasting things around the garden. And the kids probably wouldn't have explored that because you don't know, should I taste this? Should I not? Should I smell this? Should I smell that? But as parents, we get to point out where God is, and he's all around nature. Yeah. And in that, you do find those amazing resets with them. Now, in the day-to-day, there isn't really margin to just pause and rest. It's hard to do that. You have to be super intentional about that. What have you guys done as a family, a homeschooling family, a family that I'm sure is super busy? What are some ways that you guys have been able to press the pause button throughout the day to get that rest?
I like to challenge families to incorporate daily rhythms of rest, which is what you're talking about, weekly rhythms of rest, and seasonal rhythms of rest. And for our daily rhythms, I call them Selah pauses, like Selah in the Psalms, which is an intentional pause to reflect on what was just said, to maybe redirect before you go forward. And so it really is creating these, punctuating our days with rest. And it looks different season to season. But for me right now, it looks like the first thing in the morning, I'm just going to sit quietly with the Lord for 5 or 10 minutes. And I try not to even pray in that time. That's really hard. Eventually my mind goes to prayer. But I want to just sit in his delight.
Yeah, it's good.
His delight of me as his child.
It's good.
To sense that. And then I'll go for a walk before we start our school day. Yep. Sometimes my kids will join me. Other times I just go on my own. And then doing that throughout the day. And if you can't get out for a walk, step outside for 5 minutes. Like, we need to remember that 5 minutes is powerful when it comes to these rhythms, that just stopping for 5 minutes. One practice I like to do is I'll recite Psalm 23 either out loud or in my mind. But when you think of Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I add I shall not want to the end of every stanza. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. I shall not want. He leads me beside still, quiet, that word means restful, waters. I shall not want. And what we're doing as we do that is we're taking ourselves out of discontent.
Wow.
Out of comparison.
Yeah.
Because discontent and comparison are the drivers of hustle and hurry.
Yeah, it's true.
Because truly, when we step into hustle, a lot of times it's because of FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
We think, oh, I got to do that opportunity and I've got to get ahead here and I need to do this. And God is calling us, no, do not want. Rest in me, rest in my provision, rest in my power. And when we bring our minds into that place regularly throughout the day, we will simply find that we are living in God's design of rest.
So rest is being present in the moment and allowing yourself to pause and enjoy it, and also to engage with a moment of space, right? Is what you're saying.
Exactly. And also going back to the idea of delight, that rest is for delighting.
I love that.
That I love the idea of throughout the day, we're just keeping a record of Thanksgiving. Like, we do this for Sabbath. To kick off Sabbath every Friday evening, we do communion together as a family. And then we'll pour sparkling grape juice and we'll toast to the week. And we just reflect on, what did we see God doing? What can we thank him for?
It's really good.
And bringing in these practices of gratitude and delight. So our children also are really entering into those practices.
How old are your kids?
They are 13, 11, 10, and 7.
Wow. Such special ages.
Yeah.
And special ages, I think, for them to really grasp, like, how important all of this is. Like, it's just really, really awesome. But our kids are 11, 6, and 4. So we're kind of, almost in there. Yeah.
Space. Yeah.
So you talked about there's 3 different categories of the rest that you focus on. You've shared a little bit about the daily ones. The other 2 categories, can you speak to those a little bit of your rhythms in those areas as well?
Yeah, so our weekly rhythm is Sabbath. And a lot of times people, and I know I did, kind of trip over Sabbath because maybe they've tried before and feel like they've failed, or it feels like this strict command. But again, it's an invitation from God. It's a gift.
Yeah.
So first, changing our mindset and seeing it as that it's not something we need to get a check mark on or an A+. It's simply an invitation and a practice. We're going to get it wrong. There's flexibility. We can adapt.
Yeah.
So for my family, we do celebrate it Friday sundown to Saturday sundown.
Yep.
And it starts with that communion and celebration, and then a really easy meal because we don't want arguments around the table that evening, and then a sweet treat. And our Sabbath, we do screen-free because screens, media, notifications, that's all restless. Those are the things I want to stop and put away for the day. And so it is just an evening and then a day spent outside playing together, reading great books. Sometimes we'll go on a hike, creating, doing art, gardening, cooking, those things that you really want to get to throughout the week, but we often just don't make time for. That's that's the day to do all those things and to be together.
And then the seasonal, what do you do seasonally that's different?
Seasonally is so fun because, again, you get to enter into nature's rhythms. As the days get shorter in the winter, really just using that as your cue to, okay, this season is a season for more rest. So in the winter, our family for years practiced what we call family hibernation, like when you think of hibernating animals.
Yeah.
And again, like Sabbath, this was something that we kind of came up against this wall when our kids were really young, and we were just going and hustling, and we hadn't started Sabbathing yet. And my husband came to me and he said, why don't we hibernate? And I was like,
With ice cream.
with ice cream, exactly. I was intrigued and said, okay, tell me more. And he said, why don't we just for a couple of weeks hunker down, read books, light candles in the evening, play music, eat fun treats. And so we, right after the holidays that year, we did. And for years, it was like a 2-week thing where we would just cancel everything that we could on the calendar. Of course, some work still had to be done, but it was this time protected for our family to rest. And now it's actually expanded to really our winter, where we just have a more restful atmosphere, especially in the evenings, where we're going to turn down the lights, work in cooperation with nature's rhythms, and really just show our kids, God created all of nature to thrive through rest, and he created us to also have these daily, weekly, and seasonal rhythms of rest that supports all of our work.
What have you noticed in the tone of your family? Like what difference have you seen as you press more into all of this?
I love that question because it's been profound, the difference in our children. I love knowing that they are spending a 7th of their childhood at rest. And we have seen just how much they love this because, it's hard when you tell a child, okay, we're going to put away all the screens for a day. And there can be some pushback against that. But what we found was our kids long for that time with us.
Yeah.
They want to sit and read a book. They want to go out and throw a ball in the yard. They want to go on a hike. They want to be with us. And so now they know Sabbath is coming. Sabbath is that day. So if mom had to say no to something during the week, if she didn't have time to read that book, we're going to have this built-in time.
Yeah.
And there was a season about a couple years ago that we missed a few Sabbaths in a row because of a loss in the family and traveling and grief and memorial service. And after 3 weeks, our oldest son, who was 11 at the time, he came to us and he said, Mom, can we please Sabbath this weekend? He felt it in his bones. He needed it. That's the power of this because God designed us for it. And our kids innately know that because they are created in his image.
Yeah.
And having adequate sleep and having downtime, just really kids are better able to focus, are better able to regulate their emotions. I mean, there's some benefits internally, physiologically in the brain. Now, you talked about sleep and how important that is, and just rest in general helps the brain have room and margin to organize itself and to do what it's supposed to do and not break down. And then you talked about the perennials having this season of rest, but really the roots are getting deeper. It's still active, but there's a repair and a growth taking place behind the scenes. And so for child development, this is key to really put into place. Now you've talked about kudzu vines in your book, and you equate that with technology, and technology is a thing that many parents are trying to wrestle with. And you talked about putting the phones to the side and how hard that may be for kids. Just talk about your comparison of kudzu vines with, did I say it right? I don't know if I even said it right. Kudzu vine.
Yeah, there's different. Tomato.
Is it kudzu?
I think it's kudzu. We have a different one here.
Okay.
There's a lot of invasive plants here, but
sounds pretty official.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about invasive plants, so any plant that doesn't belong where it is and can cause devastation. So this comes from my second book, Rooted in Wonder, and we talk about technology being like those invasive plants. And there's 3 main similarities, and they are the first one that they're both recent introductions. So invasive plants were brought in the past couple hundred of years from distant lands to lend exotic beauty to our gardens. And technology is a newer introduction. Yeah. We are really the first generation of parents helping our children navigate this crazy tech world that they're in. So they're both recent introductions, they both come with good intentions. Like I said, those plants, they're like, oh, these are beautiful. Why not bring them over here? And technology, we have so many good applications for it. We're using it right now. We use it every day to share the gospel.
Yeah.
It has good intentions. But the third point is what we really need to pay attention to, because left unchecked, they both quickly get out of hand.
Yeah.
So invasive plants, they don't have their natural predators where they are, so they just overtake a landscape. And they might even look beautiful. They might be a beautiful
Initially,
flowering
maybe.
bush.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't see the underlying devastation.
Yeah.
And the same with technology, that we can have these good applications, but left unchecked, it steals a childhood.
Yeah.
The average child today, so we have, best case scenario, 936 weeks with our children between birth and 18. And
Doesn't sound like that many.
it's not that
actually.
many.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I was researching this for my first book, I wanted to look at how much of that time is being given to a device or media. And this was several years ago. So I pulled together all this research and these numbers and found that the average child spends 205 of those waking weeks with a device or media. It's almost 22% of their childhood.
And probably some more. Yes.
Probably some more, exactly. And so it's like that invasive plant. But we also can't let it leave us completely discouraged or hopeless, because God is a God of hope.
Yes.
And what I've seen in my work as a naturalist is with intentionality and small changes, you can restore a landscape and get rid of those invasive plants and bring it back to its balance and its health. The same is true with childhood.
Yeah.
With little changes, trading an hour a day of screen time to go outside, choosing to read a book before we turn on any screens. These little intentional changes can restore the balance and the health of our kids' childhoods.
So it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. The
Yeah.
course correction doesn't have to feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
Sometimes there has to be that big reset, though,
Completely.
for kids that have been dependent on that. And it can be tough for a couple weeks
Yeah.
as you're resetting everything and rebalancing. Just like a landscape, it can be really tough and a lot of hard work initially. But then once you rebalance it, there's that restoration that's taking place.
Yes.
Right. We bought a plant once. You'll enjoy this one. It was a sorrel. It tasted kind of lemony. We'd put it on sandwiches. And man, we were so upset that we had bought that plant. A couple years later, it was everywhere. And we had to put black plastic down. It looked ugly in our backyard, trying to get rid of this plant that we had bought at some point, thinking, oh, this is a great buy. Let's put this in our garden. And never again. We will never buy that again. So I that word picture that you've given us is really important for us to take with us and to think about what is invasive into our rest. I mean, it could be it could be sports, it could be so many different things that are invading into this place of rest that we have an invitation to as a family, as you said, daily, weekly, and seasonally. And as a family, if we don't look at that before we know it, I mean, there's so many different things that can be happening in our home. What is a word of encouragement to a family that's been so busy, they haven't rested for a very long time? Things are breaking down. What's a place to start in resetting towards a place of renewal in their home?
If I can, I'd like to share a word of encouragement and then a first step. And the word of encouragement would be take a risk on rest. We're so scared because we think
it's countercultural. I think
very
that's why we're
countercultural.
scared. Yeah.
But when you think about the Israelites in Exodus 16, when it was the first mention of Sabbath, when God called them and said, don't collect on the seventh day, it's a day dedicated to rest. They had no context. There wasn't a Sabbath yet. They could think back, I'm sure, to God working and then resting on the seventh day.
Right.
But God was calling them to an act of faith. And rest and Sabbath are always an act of faith.
That's good.
Yeah.
And God blesses it. I've seen it in my family. God richly, richly blesses it. Again, to where we become more productive and more fruitful. He brings abundance. And a good place to start is I try to encourage families that if you don't feel you can set aside a whole day, start with 4 hours.
Okay.
Find a 4-hour chunk. Maybe it's a Wednesday afternoon. That's fine. You're not committing to it forever. It's a starting point. If you can't find 4 hours, there is something wrong in your agenda. You need to prune. You just have to. You have to be able to find 4 hours. And then write 2 lists. And the first list is things you need to stop, things you need to set aside for that time. It's probably technology. I actually set an away message on my email during our Sabbath, so people know I'm not even looking, I'm not responding. And I put my phone in focus mode, so I can't receive anything except emergency text messages. Write down everything you need to stop during that time. Again, technology, but it also might be spending money. It might be driving through town if that's stressful. And then write a list of things that you delight in. Again, creating, reading, writing, going outside. Those are the things that you want to fill that time up with. And then you have your day and your time set aside, what you're not going to do and what you're going to do.
That's so good. I love that. We're both writing notes.
Yeah, the fill-ups
really
are
good.
so important for us to know. That's that self-awareness, and also the awareness with our kids. It is so hard to put a stop to certain things. And with kids, certain kids, you're going to get a tremendous amount of pushback where it can create some very big conflict between parents and their kids. How does a parent hang in there when they know this is the right thing to do for the family and their children are very unhappy with what's happening?
First, remembering that your first responsibility is to God.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that he's calling you to this, and he's going to bless it. He will. It is going to be hard, but he's going to bless it. And then some things to make it a little bit easier is I try to never take away something without giving something better.
That's good.
And so if you're going to say, hey, we're going to take away the devices for a day, yeah, but we're going to play some games together. We're going to eat some really tasty food. We're going to read books together. Again, our children want that. They may not say it, but they want it. And then sometimes we'll wrap up our Sabbath with a family movie night. So they know, like, okay, at the end, we're going to watch a fun movie together and eat some popcorn and treats. So really just kind of training them into that rhythm.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of vision casting too, right?
Yeah. Well, you're exactly right. Abiding is the foundation of it all, because abiding is God's invitation to live at rest. We've been talking real practical, daily, weekly, seasonal. Abiding is the lifestyle. And so that word abide, meno in the Greek, it means to remain, to stay, and to dwell. And we see it, you think about John 15, the famous abide passage. And in verses 4 to 10, you get 10 mentions of abide. And they're all us abiding in Christ, Christ abiding in God, Christ's love abiding in us, like it is, or Christ's word abiding in us. So it's all of this abiding with Christ, with God. But then there's another mention of abide. I believe it's in verse 16, and it is that we are called to produce fruit that abides. So this is very different. It's this idea of fruit that does not rot. It is everlasting fruit. If we are to produce that kind of fruit in our children, in their eternity, fruit that ripples into eternity, we must first start with abiding in Christ.
That's good.
And you think about the nature analogy that I use for that chapter in the book is a sloth. And of course, we think about sloths being very slow. They will move about 125 feet across a treetop a day, that's all. And when they have their babies, for the first 6 months of life, that sloth baby clings to its mother, really feeling her pace. And it's this beautiful picture of the sloth baby, like picture it sinking into its mother's restful embrace. That's what God is calling us to do. As we sink into that, when you think of be still, Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. That word be still, it gives a picture of sinking, not into despair or discouragement, but we are sinking into the restful presence of God and into his capable hands. As we do that, we start matching his pace.
Yeah.
And as we do that, our kids sink into our restful embrace.
Wow.
And they start matching our pace.
That's great.
When a key there is, apart from me, you can do nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's a powerful statement for us to hear, that if we don't find that place of connectedness with our Heavenly Father, we're ineffective in what we do. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Eryn, is there's a mindset that we bring to our home, and in that we're resetting the mind as well. And so we this whole idea of rest is countercultural right now, but certainly key to the development of connection and relationship in the home, and also in our children's development and our relationship with our Heavenly Father. Thank you so much for your insights, Eryn. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for
Enjoyed
having
this
me.
conversation so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Well, Eryn was such a delightful guest. Didn't you feel that?
I felt relaxed while we were doing it.
Did you notice at the end of the interview, I just feel like we were just so calm and chill.
Right.
I think it was like the calmest and chillest
Listeners
we've ever
may have been wondering about us, Rebecca. They're going, are they okay?
Yeah, I know.
They're
They
going to fall
seemed
asleep.
really mellow.
Yes.
But no, there was something about her restfulness and the
You could
peacefulness
feel
that
it.
was on her that brought an extra calm, I think, into the room that was just almost tangible.
She was so definitive about it, about
Yeah.
the importance of it, and very articulate as to the importance for her personally, but also in her family,
Yes.
and how it's transformed her family.
And I think it's an invitation, like she kept on using that word,
Yes.
invitation, to every family that we need to heed more than we do. Because in some ways, I think there's this like emotional, mental health crisis that we're seeing all around us that comes from not enough rest and not enough balance and not enough time to stop and delight, like she was talking about, like that idea of Sabbath or Shabbat, stop, pause, rest, delight. I loved that. That ministered to me so much, like having two lists, like one of things that you're going to kind of stop putting or giving time to probably make space really within your family, and then things to delight in, things
you
to
can
enjoy.
and do as
How
a
beautiful.
family.
I want to
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, then it becomes more that invitation,
Yes.
that word. And I'm obsessed with that one. I love the word invitation because we're surrounded by them.
Yeah.
We're surrounded by invitation to connect with people, or invitation to connect with God's nature and plan for us. There's a constant invitation to be in prayer with our Heavenly Father. There's an open invitation all day long for us. And it's a matter of which one we say yes to.
Yes.
We're invited to all kinds of places. So the fact that she used that is an important place to begin thinking about this. What invitations am I saying yes to, and why am I saying yes to those invitations? And that could even be invitation from work.
Yeah.
Where you get invited to take on more responsibilities. And why would I say yes to those? Or do I say yes to the restful ones and the work that I have in my home?
Yeah.
Because work isn't necessarily bad.
Right.
And when there's a lot of great things that we could think about in work, but it's this balance that she's talking about that she brings us into. And rest can look different for each person. I know between Heather and I, we're very different in what we consider rest. She would probably say, I'd love to sit down with a book and nap. That's what she would want to do.
Yeah.
I'd want to go out in the garden. I'd maybe want to work out or go on a bike ride or do something active. And Lexi, my daughter, is very much like that. It's hard for us to just pause and just sit and rest. But when we do, it is renewing in one way. But we love the activity that we love to do. That's restful to us. Whereas my son and my wife, they love just the downtime, sitting down, maybe doing a puzzle or hanging out, or sometimes just taking a nap and renewing their body that way. But really, when you're talking about vitality, I see that rest helps relationship repair because you're more regulated, life repair, and also body repair.
100%.
Our body needs that margin to be able to respond to all the demands that are on top of us every single day. And I think where we went here is that there was a mindset that we needed to be thinking about. This mindset, we talk about resetting the mind, but also the mindset of rest being something renewing. And she went to this a couple times, that it's not laziness.
No.
It's a filling up of something inside of us and allowing for us to do that. And when we look at research, prayer and having that restful time and also laughter. Laughter can be very renewing and healing and restful. All those help with the overall well-being of a person. When you look at what statistics and research would say about what are the benefits to this, there are many that science have also backed up.
I feel like I'm going to apply a lot of what she was speaking to our life as a family.
I would agree, Rebecca. And growth is is something that came out in that one as well. We allow for growth to take shape, right? Those roots and things inside of us. And for our kids to see that happen can help them pause and actually enjoy the life they've been given and to be grateful. Well, in today's busy culture, we have to be intentional about living every day in God's restful presence. And I was reading in Psalm 143:8 recently, Rebecca, and it said, "Let me hear in the morning of your steadfast love, for in you I trust. Make me know the way I should go, for to you I lift up my soul."
Love that.
I just feel a sense of restfulness there in the morning. Do I trust him wholeheartedly enough to take pauses of rest in his creation? Well, it's hard to do sometimes, but with the help of Eryn's book, The Nature of Rest, you can find God's promise of rest and how it offers a path away from the hurry and exhaustion that we so often get wrapped up in.
Mm-hmm. And Eryn's message is so very important, and we'd be happy to send you The Nature of Rest for a gift of any amount to focus on the family. And if you're in a position to give on a monthly basis, we would sure appreciate that. Your tax-deductible contribution will help us continue to bring you and others the wonderful resources and conversations that we have on this podcast. We appreciate those who have already donated or given to this ministry, and we want to say thanks to you for considering supporting this outreach. For details on Eryn's book and for ways to contribute, just click the link in the show notes. Well, it's time for our weekly Q&A. This week's question comes from Andrea, who asks,
my daughter is 11 years old, and she wants to dye her hair a hot pink color. She is an artistic and expressive child, and obviously we want to foster those gifts that God has given her, but we think that she's too young. We don't want pink hair to lead to a slippery slope of getting tattoos and getting piercings on her face. Her father and I have told her that we're thinking about it, but we both have agreed that our answer is going to be no. I'm thinking that if we tell her to wait until she's 13, she'll resent us and complain that we're stifling her creativity. Please give us some realistic options and compromises.
Speaking of nature, right?
Yeah. Natural hair color or not natural hair color.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I relate to this. Our daughter, who is now 11, does like to put a natural, and I don't know how this works exactly, but because it's washout, Danny, but it's kind of more on the natural end hair dye. So I don't know what they're using from nature to make this pink hair dye. But it, washes out in a few shampoos. I think as a mom, I was probably initially a little bit resistant to it, especially when she takes about a month to wash her hair again because she wants to keep the hair dye in there.
So it's getting a little greasy.
A little bit. But, and often schools, if your kids are in a private school, that will kind of vet out things like this. But public school system, probably not as much. But yeah, I think it is one of those things where you kind of prayerfully go as a family. Do we think that this is something that's going to lead to, a further down the track of kind of what appears to be, at least on the surface, rebellious, like track.
Right.
Or is it one of those things where hair, and I've read some books on this too, of like hair, if it's a personal preference thing, just isn't really that big of a battle to fight because they are expressing themselves individually. So, Danny, I would like to hear what you think on it.
I'm sure with listeners, we'd have a wide range of responses to this, and both sides, I'm sure. There's something behind the desire to want to have hot pink hair. That's where I would go.
Yeah. And
Andrea, that's where I would start. Just validate the fact that she wants to get this and that she wants to be creative. That side of her, that's fantastic. It's a beautiful part of her that she wants to be creative and is not really concerned about the opinion of others in this case, and just saying, hey, tell me more about the why. Why now? Why do you want to do it? What is it that you're wanting to accomplish with this?
That's good.
And she may say, I just want to have different, I just want to change my hair color. I think it'd be fun. It'd be a fun thing to do. Right. And most of the time they'd be wanting to do that. And it's a way for them to individuate themselves. And that's kind of an interesting word. It's just to create this outside of the norm experience and to express themselves in an artistic way. And this is more common with the kids that are more artistic. Take interest in it, ask lots of questions, and if it is a no that you and your husband are deciding on this, say for now it's a no, but it's interesting what you're wanting with this. Let's find other ways for you to be expressing yourself in a creative way, because that's what you want. Let's figure it out together. Is there another way? Are there some other clothes that you're wanting to explore? Are there hobbies that you're wanting to go into to step outside of what you feel to be just the common everyday normal? And could there be other things we could look at? And if she sticks to that, say, why is the hair color the most important thing for you? Is there something else? And it makes them feel more part of the culture, but also grown up.
Yep.
And so that's another thing to validate. Say, hey, I know you want to feel grown up. That's great. Let's find other ways that you can feel that, because that's more the important thing. And then let them know that the hair does communicate something. What they wear and how they carry themselves, all of that is a way of communication. It's not all words. In fact, a lot of it's nonverbal, the way we communicate with one another. And with the hair, there's a part of it that communicates rebellion, a part of it that communicates artistic flair, and another one that communicates just fun.
Yeah.
And let's figure out, as we're continuing this conversation, where you're at on these. And if you're going towards rebellion, it's going to be a no. If we're feeling that we're not in a good place, there are other places that are showing rebellion, we're going to say no to that.
Yeah.
If there are other places we're just having fun and artistic, I think we'll get to a yes. And let's learn more about it, the naturals and other ways that we can do it in a way that makes sense. And we're going to work with you on it.
Yeah, that's wise. It sounds really balanced. Andrea, thanks so much for your question, and we hope that you've been given some options to consider. We are going to send you, as our way of saying thank you, Danny's great book, 7 Traits of Effective Parenting. If you have questions and you're listening right now, it's really simple to just click on the show notes and send it to us. We would love to hear from you.
Well, it's our pleasure to be here with you each and every week to share parenting ideas and have discussions like these, Rebecca, that you can use to raise your family towards a thriving faith in Christ. And we hope that you're enjoying it just as much as we are. Are you enjoying it, Rebecca?
Oh, absolutely. I love this. Yes. I look forward to it every time. And we hope that you're talking about what you've heard on Practice Makes Parent with your friends, with other parents. These topics and ideas make great conversation starters. Next week, we'll be hearing from Eryn McPherson. She'll be sharing some ideas on how to handle all the emotions when we send our kids back to school. It's coming up before we know it.
We hope you'll be with us for that one. But for now, I'm Dr. Danny Huerta.
And I'm Rebecca St. James. Join us next time for more tips for transforming your parenting on Practice Makes Parent.